Okay, the last point of the show, my ugly point, is going to be largely referencing an interview Blade just did with HLTV.org. And also, I also saw Alexi B did something else elsewhere where essentially, this is what bums me out. I actually thought, I did an episode of Feed the Trolls where I addressed this. I thought Na'Vi had sort of understood that the trouble they're in, but I actually get the sense they're in denial, guys. Like, if I look at Alexi B's comment where he basically just said something like, his headline was, I wouldn't say it's the last dance, but we need to make it happen now. It is literally the last dance right this second, Alexi B. Like, this roster, if it doesn't succeed now in this season, which is almost over, this is the last dance. Otherwise, you're going to be irrelevant. And then Blade's was worse, because Blade's headline was... this wasn't the headline on the article, but this was one that was quoted on Reddit. It said, I think the community is always overreacting on any topic, that's for sure. Then when I went in the article, I Control F, search for it. The question says, I wanted to also ask, this is HLTV guy, I wanted to also ask about the recent community, they put settlement, but they mean sentiment, it's just autocorrected. You guys obviously showed a very high level last year, and this year you were only eliminated by Spirit, Eternal Fire, and the Mongols before Melbourne. Otherwise, you always beat the teams that you are supposed to beat. Do you feel like the community is maybe overreacting about your underperformance a bit? And then he says, I won't read the whole thing, but I'll just read this little bit. He says, I think the community is always overreacting on any topic. That's for sure. For them, any provocative topic can be a joy. But yeah, maybe you are right that we have, maybe 90% of the time, beaten the teams that we should, who are lower than us in the rankings. So first of all, both those sets of statements are only correct in that very specific framing. So the guy who's the interviewer, mate, you must just be Na'Vi fan number one. Because I noticed you didn't say the teams that have beaten you, you said eliminated. So you're now pretending only the elimination match counts. You know why they've done that, mate? I'll tell you why. Because you're right. If you say only eliminated, it goes Spirit, Eternal Fire, Mongols. That's fine. Those are all teams in a group stage that should be able to beat you, right? Here's the problem. You've also lost to Saw. You've lost to Falcons before they were into that point. Now, obviously, people think they're better, but this is when they're a brand new roster. You've lost to Team Liquid at Melbourne, by the way. I know she didn't mention that because that's not the elimination match. So my problem here is, first of all, you've lost to loads of teams. And this is actually very different tangibly from last year when you were in your streak of finals. Back then, it took the best teams in the world playing the best game of their life to beat you. It had to be Vitality going crazy. It had to be Nico and Modesty and Malbs better all be online. And then, it's even then going to be super close to maybe beat you. Now, you have bled losses this year so much. You're never making finals. You're never winning trophies, ever. And if the idea is, yeah, but we're beating most of the teams we should, bro, you were supposed to be number one. Not just win most of the games you should. And by the way, that number wouldn't be 90%, mate, unless you already do elimination. If you go back and look, that number's going to be more something like, I'm going to guess like 65 or 70% or something like. It's not going to be as great as you think. So I think this is what disturbs me is the sentiment of the denial. Like, they actually feel like, essentially, where they seem to be at, guys, is where I was at the beginning of the year of like, look, I get that you're going to give it a little bit more time, but you better get results soon or you're going to have to make a roster move, right? And also, lastly, I'll just throw this out there. Let's not get caught up in what name beat you in the server. The eye test doesn't check out for this Na'Vi at all. Like, I'm not fucking blind. I did see you when you were in all those finals. That was some unbelievable Counter-Strike, some of the best T-side CS I've seen in CS2. That's not what I'm seeing now. It's not just the raw numbers of the rating. Like, these players play way less impactful. And by the way, if I'm an opponent, I would be way less scared to play this Na'Vi. So I put it as ugly. Because, bro, I was actually hoping they get that, like, essentially, unless you like win this major, you have to make a roster move, especially with like the first point we made on the show of all the other teams doing the roster move. So to me, this is actually quite alarming because it implies to me Na'Vi actually think like that it's not even panic stations. They think it's just sort of like mildly going bad and people are overrating it. I don't get it because to me, I would spin it the other way for real if I was the interviewer and go, mate, what worse would happen? You're losing a fucking sword and stuff. Like, where do you think the flaw goes on this thing? You were literally, in the last year, you couldn't fail to make a final. It was crazy. So I want to see what you guys think. For me, it's just an ugly point.
Oh, it's... Firstly, yes, I do believe the interviewer is quite a Na'Vi fan. And I think...
Which is fine. Okay,
the award ceremony showed that there are a fair few Na'Vi fans at this newspaper. Sorry, website. But look, this is a team that has shown us this year that without a fully perfectly working system where everyone gets their shots basically on a silver platter, they just don't have the players to contend. And last year was great for them because, look, everyone else who could be at the top had individual problems. They had glaring weaknesses that just held them back. And this year, as soon as everyone's finally fixed their problems, got on the same page in their own rosters, and start hitting heads, Navi fall off a cliff. They just can't seem to match anyone. And then, now the floor's been pulled out from beneath them. Yeah, you're right. Losing to Saw, indefensible. So I think for me, Navi are in a state where it's win something before the end of the season. Now, if JL pulls off another miracle major win, I'm not going to count it. I still think this is a case of you need to rebuild. But at that point, we start talking about what I brought up at the start, where teams shouldn't just linger with the dead, stagnant roster. Take a risk, make something happen. And then to build off my other point about Spirit's Academy, you have your own academy. Is it not worth trying one of those players? Yeah. They don't cost a real buyout, do they? They're not some big, expensive investment. You can just try something. So there is, for me, Navi, the future is either calling NPL on loan if the results off his loan or off his buyback or whatever it is exactly they've got arranged with Bait, or it's to try something with one of your academy kids. I mean, you've got Makaze, who seems pretty cracked. You've got Krabany, who's like leading and fragging on that team. Both could be brought up in different, with different visions in mind in terms of how Blade wants to see his roster playing, because he would have to make some adjustments, I think, to integrate either one. But there is a risk that needs to be taken with Navi if they want to return to contention against teams of the ilk of Vitality, the Falcons we're about to see, even right now, the Spirit, who constantly has their number. Even going back to last year, there are so many teams that just consistently beat them right now. Not even talking about the teams who come up and take their lunch money. They need to be able to contend with those top teams, so they just need to change something. Like, in terms of their approach to this roster, perhaps even Blade has to be a little less strict about how the team plays. Play looser, play off the Krabany's intuition if you're bringing him up. Just try something else. Because currently, this is clearly not working. You don't have the fraggers to keep up with the scene. At least one roster move required. We'll see who they choose to make it with. But I'm currently very, very out on Navi. I don't have them in contention for the rest of the year until they change at least one player.
By the way, I'll give you one random detail as food for thought too that no one thinks about. Have you noticed how no one anymore in the scene even does the discussion of who they'd add? Because everyone feels like it's not an option. Everyone now started going the other way. Like, I've noticed a lot of people keep saying stuff like Bitch should join Falcons and stuff, which before you wouldn't even think that was possible. So I think everyone feels like Navi won't make a move, mate. Where are you at on this, Maui?
No.
Oh, go on.
Just what I was saying. Just that's all why I'm talking about players like NPL, playing like academy players. These are not expensive options, are they? They're a recall and a promotion. It's not a big financial investment, which is what we're kind of expecting to be the limiting factor for finding a player of quality. For Navi, having to pay some big buyout or try and compete with the Falcons for a salary on a ridiculous player. They don't have to do that. Take a chance on a young player. That's all I'm asking for.
I always felt like Blade is, I find him to be emotionally unavailable, but pragmatic with what he can control. He says in the same interview just that they played with less quality than they should have played with, and that comes with hunger, because you should still be able to motivate yourself. But he's not really talking about how do you gain that hunger back or anything. I don't think he's the guy. I don't think he's the kind of guy that has the emotional answers for when things are going wrong. He has the.
If anything, he needs to actually activate the Hunger Games, and then whoever's left gets to stay in the team. Not bad. There you go. Keep going.
Wouldn't be a bad way. Wouldn't be a bad way to do it. Yeah, we'll see. I feel like Navi. I'm in a similar position as King T is, that I would want them to at least make some sort of move. I didn't even hear about the NPL one before. That's actually a really good idea, because it slipped my mind that he was on loan to Bait. But as a fragging in-game leader, I mean, I'm not saying I think Alexi is a better caller, but NPL is enough of an upgrade as an individual that sometimes it can shore up the deficiencies in calling when he's getting 4 more kills a game, even if they're, just in kind of randomly spread out. So I like it. And you would expect that actually people like Emo would be good enough at this point to be able to secondary call, because he does secondary call all the time. He would be able to chime in. So that seems like a very, very reasonable option. I know people have been talking about Makaze too. I haven't watched him. I'm sure you have.
Prospects Makaze on the channel, of course.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Because I don't have much more to say regarding that, other than what I've already said about Blade and just his approach. How would Makaze fix this team, or would he, in your eyes?
For me, the Makaze move it's a restructuring of the way Na'Vi approach their T side map control, because a lot of it is Alexi B is very involved, and it's not necessarily the heavy hitters who are going for the initial punch, and that's really what Mikaze does best, is lead, like he's the point of the spear. But the reason actually I just wanted to touch on quickly that I'm talking about a player like MPL, I'm talking about Krabny in the academy, is not to bring him up and replace Alexi B. I actually think Imma is such a vocal piece, plays fairly starring roles. Why not get some players who are untested, who have shown a pretty strong level, but also have had a voice? That was the reason I put them forward for upgrades. I mean, obviously, switching over to MPL as your caller would also be an absolutely insane switch up of the philosophy, but would maybe allow you to bring in more raw, unproven players who have that sort of mechanical edge. So, Mikaze coming into the roster it's just an injection of headshots. That's what he is. Like, he's really strong on that Na'Vi junior side, just banging for mid control, banging for map control across the other maps that don't have a mid necessarily. Like, that's what he does really well. And then Na'Vi junior just pivot off the back of it quite often. Like, they're a punch counter punch team, and that counter punch is usually.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or be a pleb and don't.